Welcome to Patriots to the Core. I'm Thad Forrester. This podcast exists because of my little brother, Mark Forrester. He was angered by the attacks on 9/11, so he joined the military to help rid the world of terrorists. On September 29, 2010, he was killed on his first deployment. From his death notification to the dignified transfer ceremony, his viewing, funeral, and subsequent memorials, I was amazed at the new world of warriors we met. These patriots have become close to our family and been huge supports. They stood out because of their willingness to voluntarily fight evil. They believed in freedom. Because of their actions, I started this podcast to interview great Americans who serve their country and communities. Thank you for tuning in.
It seems like life is busy on the furry front. Do you want to say anything about that first? Mount Nebo and any other schools in Utah or anywhere else?
Well, it's not just Mount Nebo. It's a whole bunch of different schools. Like, it's just, we're being, this is, in my opinion, this is like such a spiritual attack on all levels, targeting not only like humanity, but mainly our youth on identity. And I'd love to get into that, but thank you for having me on.
Yeah, go ahead. Let's talk about the identity and whatever you'd like to say on that topic.
Well,
please.
It's just here. And I mean, this is happening nationwide. These kids are identifying now as furries. And it's, when you identify as an animal, you're going to act like an animal. And so there's videos of, uh, of these kids barking, crawling, trying to bite the other kids. It's a little gang, right? And because we have this horrific, horrific culture of, I call it the gospel of nice. We don't want to offend anybody idea. Now we've got now the administrators aren't addressing this, right? So, but this is with anything. This is probably going to be the new protected class, or these furry animals.
I just can't believe we got to this point. Yesterday, we had kind of had this conversation in my home a week or two ago because apparently there's one in my neighborhood. And so I walked outside yesterday. My boys were shooting basketball. And my son said, "Thad, I just saw a girl walking her dog and she has a tail."
That's what I'm saying. Well, and so many people were upset about the whole, a lot of our voices back in 2015 about the gay marriage, but I'll take it back to that. That was a huge turning point in society. Um, and I don't care. Like, me personally, I don't care if a couple wants to go have a civil union. I don't think the government should be involved in any of this stuff. But as soon as a government comes in and redefines what is true. So the definition of marriage is between a man and a woman, right? And you can't change that definition. And so they try to change the definition. And so there was many of us say, this is a slippery slope. This is going to go into all these different things with animals, with you can identify whatever you want, because it doesn't matter if marriage can be, if that can be redefined, well, then what else can be redefined? I mean, look at what we're dealing with in 2024 now. Now, the man is men trying to become women. That's kind of the new shiny object for these radical Marxists that are using these people for their agenda to further sink our society further into hell.
Yeah. Well, let's move to your time and I guess the end of your time as a Salt Lake City police officer. Well, you'd explain, I know you actually didn't make a big deal about it. I don't think, at least not at first. You got someone to take your spot in a parade. We explained that situation and then why they took your badge and your gun.
Yeah, so essentially they assigned I think 5 of us to celebrate in the LGBTQ parade in our police uniform. So it wasn't just about protection, because that's what I was wondering. I'm like, hey, is this going to be, are we going to be in the parade, or just asking these questions because I saw this and I'm like, and I'm hearing all these rumblings that we're going to be leading the parade. You know how the motorcycle off, because I was a motorcycle cop, how they, do the figure eights and the celebration circles in front of a parade. That's what they wanted us to do. And I just said, hey, I'll protect it. So I switched spots with another cop, and just said, hey, do you want to be in the parade? And I'll do your security assignment at the parade. And he said, yeah, no problem. And so we switched. And then about an hour later, there was an email that came down that said there will be no switching positions. And so I believe the sergeant over the event, he absolutely knew we got a trade, or else why would he put that in the email? Because that's part of our policy is that we can trade. In fact, several officers in that event, including my sergeant at the time, got out of the event entirely because they didn't want to be there at all. But, so then it went up the chain all the way up to the political chief, and they wanted to make a huge deal of it. They took my badge and my gun for discrimination, because I didn't want to celebrate in the LGBTQ parade. And mind you, this is in 2014. So this was kind of before it all started to blow up. So then when I saw my story in the news, national news, I was like, it's over. I was like, I'm done. I mean, they were standing, my police department was standing on the steps of the police department saying that we don't tolerate bias, bigotry, or hatred without even going through an investigation.
They didn't
And
even
so,
protect themselves of their own guys at all. It was all directed towards you.
well, I think it was actually a cut. They were trying to cover up another story, but that's a whole nother story in itself. And for anybody who wants to read my story, you can pick up my book either at Amazon. Here it is right here. It's called Dispatched: Conscience or Conformity. If you don't have the funds, then you can pick it up or you can read it on my website, ericmoutsos.com, for free. And then if you want like a signed copy, you can go to freedomblends.com. That's my company. So,
I guess while you were in law enforcement as a police officer, I'm thinking back to like Trayvon Martin, which I believe was 2012. To me, that's when it stood out to me as when the police started getting really a bad name and not being supported by our country or our government. When did you see a shift in that, and what was it? Did you see a time when you were serving when you felt a lot of
yeah,
support from the
really. I mean,
community
I
and then you
got in, I
didn't?
think, around 2007. And then when Obama came in, things started to shift really quickly because he started the rhetoric, the whole race rhetoric. I don't know if you remember that professor that was stopped trying to get into his own house. He's black. The cops stop him. And so then Obama comes on national news and says the police acted stupidly. And so then it just started to spiral. Beforehand, like nobody, in my opinion, it wasn't a thing. Like we had overcome. I mean, literally, we just elected a black president in the United States of America, but yet we're racist. I mean, I know so many people that literally voted for him because of this color of his skin. And so in my opinion, Obama, he could have been an ultimate uniter if he would have been standing on correct principles and he wasn't, biased himself.
Yeah, so you weren't in during the Michael Brown riots that started in Missouri, were you? Were you out by then, or do you remember?
Well, 2014, I'm not sure. I don't remember when
Okay,
that happened, when the
okay.
Michael Brown, but it's all the same stuff. It's all the same. In my opinion, it really, really ramped up and reignited with Barack Obama.
What did it do to you professionally and to your family after all that?
It was really, really difficult at first. Like I couldn't, it was, people wouldn't, I mean, a lot of people knew that it was me. And so, I tried to get back into law enforcement. It just wasn't anywhere near the same. I don't want to sit here and pretend like I'm some kind of victim because every choice that you make has consequence, right? And so looking back now and the struggle that we went through, just to pay my bills, I don't know if I would trade it for anything now looking back.
Hmm.
Meaning I'm so thankful. Like the only thing that I regret is that I didn't get like really loud about it. Like I'm gonna get real, like, like have the confidence that I do now back then because I was terrified. I mean, I went through a huge depression, lost like 25 pounds. I couldn't eat. I didn't want to get out of bed because I was like I didn't know what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And thankfully, God just blessed me with so many opportunities. He didn't just give it to me, but he blessed me with so many opportunities to be able to provide for my family, to the point where it's like I can never, it would be very difficult for me to work for somebody else at this point.
Did your wife work outside the home, or was it just you?
Yeah, it was just me.
Wow.
And
That's a lot, a
and
lot of
and
weight.
cop pay isn't great.
Yeah.
And so, we relied on God. Jack Phillips, I don't know if you know who he is. He was the cake baker in Colorado that didn't want to bake the gay wedding cake. Do you remember this?
Yeah, I do.
So he had heard my story and we ended up connecting, but he sent me, I think it was $500 in the mail at that time. So like the Lord was just like very, very, very aware
Yeah,
of us.
absolutely.
And it just, it's the media that did it. It was the salt, I call them the Salt Fake Tribune. I mean, they ran a fake story. They ran not a real story. They didn't do their homework. They just wanted it out there. Officer refuses assignment. That's not what happened.
Of
But
course.
once that happened, and once, you know, our chief did what he did, I knew it was over there. I knew my time there was done.
Is there anybody now that you have a good relationship with from the police department? People
Oh
that
yeah,
that
several people. Yeah. I mean, it was kind of the same as it was there. Like people either really liked me or they really didn't.
I'll have links to your social and to everything about you. You're outspoken and you're unapologetic, which I greatly appreciate. I know you said you went through a time of depression after you lost your badge, but have you always been confident in your beliefs and verbal, or did something happen? Did this spark it, or did something else in your life spark it where you're like, no more, am I going to be silent?
Um, I started to wake up. I started to watch this thing called GBTV, which was Glenn Beck television, when I was a cop, when I was like on duty, just downtime. I'd just have it playing. And I started to learn about the Constitution, about our founding fathers, about what America was. I didn't understand any of that. I read a book called The 5,000 Year Leap that I highly recommend people get. And I just saw like how divine our country was supposed to be. And we were supposed to be a city on a hill. And unfortunately, we've become the exact opposite. We've allowed, you know, deep state government to come in and just completely destroy us from the inside out. But it's because we allowed that to happen. And so, anyway, what I'm trying to get at is when I started to study and read and to just resonate with certain truths, I don't think that you can not talk about it, right? For me, like I'm like, oh my gosh, like I got to share this, and maybe that's just what I do. And
Hmm.
so, I could feel like it just, being a cop, it just wouldn't, like I couldn't go back now, because I would actually feel bad for whatever agency would pick me up at this point, because they'd be like, we got to deal with what you say now. And so, and I'm not always right. You said unapologetic. There's times where I need to apologize. We all get emotional with these kind of things. And we right now, I just don't think people understand, like we are going as a country 150 miles an hour on a freeway with no more exit ramps.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to warn as many people possible, like it's coming. We're almost here. I mean, the level of corruption, the level of, I call them secret combinations, the cabal, whatever you want to call it, it's here. It's right now. And it's time to wake up real quick.
Mm. Well, it helps when someone is well spoken, which you are, but it also, I think, is there very important, probably, I mean, maybe more important to me anyway, is for someone that's sincere, and which you are. And so you have a good blend of what I think is needed to share what you believe. It just so happens that I feel strongly about everything I've heard from you too. I want maybe step back just a minute. You served a mission for, you were a full-time missionary for the LDS Church for some period of time. I don't know how long. I know you, and I think you had depression or you had to come home early.
Hmm.
So I guess how did that affect you? Because me being a member of that church and serving a mission, I know that can be there's a cultural thing there, and people can be very, very harsh and judgmental on someone who comes home early. How did you deal with that, and how did it affect you later on?
Kind of the same way, like, because I do. I've always had this ever since I was younger. It's kind of like depression, anxiety. I've had to get up out of it all the time in the mornings. It's just kind of my thorn, one of my thorns, right? What I did was I ended up finding music, which is crazy because I never was into music, but I ended up singing, and I ended up entering into a karaoke contest, and this little fire of life came back inside it. It was like country, right? I won the karaoke contest, and then I get to Nashville Star. It's kind of like a really ghetto version of American Idol.
I remember that.
And I win in my region. And then anyway, long story short, I end up getting a phone call from Evander Holyfield, the boxer. And he somehow had a record label. I mean, this is crazy because we grew up watching Holyfield and Tyson fight. We would actually have boxing parties at my house where everyone would come in and pitch in $5, because the pay-per-views at the time were like $45 or
Yeah.
50 bucks.
Uh-huh.
And so we'd watch them. And he was one of my heroes. But anyway, it's just crazy. All of a sudden he's on the phone and he wants to hear me sing. And so he flew me and my brother out to his house in Atlanta, and I took my guitar and just kind of muddled out a song because I wasn't that great. And he said, I want to help you. So then I was on his record label for several years, and we did not end up, making it. Was at the same time when kind of digital downloads were starting to happen, big record companies were crashing. I was going back and forth to Nashville, and I just didn't have a good feeling about it. I really did not. I don't know why. I really wanted to do that lifestyle, perform, but I didn't want to do the lifestyle because there comes, you know, we just had our first kid, and ultimately I just felt like it was not the right thing for me and my family if I wanted to have a family, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so slowly I started to find, but I was finding myself. I did a ride along with this guy in my ward, the church, and he was on the gang unit and the SWAT team. And we went out one night in Salt Lake City, and I had I loved it. It was action packed, and I didn't even want to come home when I came home, I was like, sweetie, I really like that. And she's like, you'd be a good cop. And so that's when I started going to school to be a cop. So that's how I got into police work. But to fully answer your question about depression and getting out of those funks and not going on mission, is that I believe that no matter where you're at, no matter what faith you're in, doesn't matter what faith you're in, when you talk about Jesus and you talk about what's true to whoever it is, the spirit can be there, and it can really give you a new life. You know how the apostle Paul says, like, I die daily. I don't know if you remember that scripture, but
Mm-mm.
in the Bible he says I die daily. Well, what that means is that you can be reborn daily. You can literally have a conversation with somebody like you and we can talk about this. The spirit can testify certain truths, and you're lit back up again. It's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. It's
Yeah.
like it's such a and so that's ultimately what's happened to me over the years. Is it's like, look, I didn't go on a full-time mission, but we're supposed to always be on a mission
Yeah.
all the time. And when we sin, we repent. And when we do something dumb, we fix it, move on, forgive people. It's hard being a Christian sometimes because we all have problems, right? And so how do you preach what Jesus wants us to preach, which is repentance, when we ourselves are sinners? Well, I think it's because we all have to kind of hold each other accountable and say, hey, is this the type of society that we want? Do we really want furries do we really not want to confront this idea that kids can now identify as other genders and animals, and so I believe we're supposed to talk about this stuff, because if we lose the foundational truths of who we are as children of God, really, it's over. And I think that's what happened in Noah's time, and I think that's what's happening in our time. Like
Sure.
we
Oh
need
yeah.
to right now is we have got to start identifying ourselves of who we actually are. And that's Romans chapter 8. I think it's 17. 16 and 17 talks about the knowing not that you're the children of God, and I don't know if it says that exactly, but then, basically we are born in his image. That's what it's saying. And he will give us everything that he has if we suffer with him.
What were you doing during, professionally and or personally when COVID hit in spring of 20? Did you have freedom blends at that point, or was it before then?
Oh no, I've thought about that I had that as like a little thought for a long time, like starting up a little supplement company, but I was doing solar energy actually. I got into the solar energy world.
Like you were selling,
Hmm.
salesman or something? Okay.
Yeah, for probably on and off 4 years, and I'll still sometimes get people that will contact me to get deals. And so it's like I kind of do a lot of stuff. I kind of do a lot of stuff. I'm like, people will contact me, want me to push their products. I'm a distributor for Harvest Right, Freeze Dryer, or an affiliate, you
Yeah, I've
know.
seen that.
So it's like, yeah, what people send me stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I can talk about this, So
Mhm.
there's a lot of stuff that I've done, and I will probably always continue to do because that's what, instead of going and working for the man or somebody else, I just got to keep, do whatever. So when COVID hit, I was in a position to be able to start really, like, really, really fighting back against that machine because I had this feeling like we're under attack as soon as all that started hitting. I didn't know how, I didn't know what, I didn't understand how bad it really was, but I knew that we had to start gathering. I knew we had to gather
Yeah.
and rally against all of these unconstitutional, in my opinion, very satanic mandates that were crushing us as a people.
Let me read a quote from you. This is from your website or from your documentary Non-Essential, which I'll have a link to. Awesome. By the way, I knew I couldn't read your book before this interview, so I will be. I'll be buying it, and then but I did watch Non-Essential. But here's something you said. Hopefully, this is verbatim. I love to watch people light up by feeling the spirit of liberty. God wants us to be free. He established America for just that. And if we don't continue to gather and promote these universal principles, we will lose it all over again. My hope and goal is to not let that happen. Was that during COVID? And if not, when and what did you do during COVID that was just
Well,
incredible?
well, yeah, just watch that documentary, Non-Essential. It's on ericmoutsos.com. But one of my buddies who's a police officer called me and said, "Hey, they have us going on these calls to tell neighbors to get away." They put up a snitch line. Salt Lake City, the communists that they are, put up a snitch line that if you're not social distancing, the police will come. Now, they never arrested anybody, but they were showing a force. When you show up, that's a level. And so they're showing up telling neighbors to get away from neighbors. And I was like, what?
Yeah.
This is happening in Utah? And so I called the snitch line on myself and I recorded myself and I said, hey, there's going to be a former police officer that's going to do a big rally. And she's like, well, he can't do that. And so then we put on the first, one of the first, if not the first, rallies in the United States during COVID. And one of my friends I was talking to that owns a restaurant down there, he's a Greek guy, Crown Burger. It's really, really,
Brown
really good.
burger. I've eaten there before.
It's really good. But I tried to send everybody over to his business because his business was dying. And he called me after. He's like, dude, I can't even tell you how thankful I am. Like, we had so many people come. And I could feel he was so thankful. Right. And so then I just had this idea. I just had this idea. I just saw in my mind all of like going to different parks around the state and taking over the parks in protest, but we're going to invite small businesses to come and shop. So we would hold these big rallies all over the state. I'd do a call to action. Is there any mayor? Is there a mayor that's willing to stand up? So Mayor Julie Fulmer from Vineyard, she's like, I'll do it. So so then we had this big event where like 5,000 people came, and right in the heart of COVID, and we were just shopping. Nobody got sick, nobody died. And then this guy comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, this is what I do. This is my business." And he showed me kind of his book of what he does, and I'm looking at, and it's like stages, like concert stages and lighting and all this stuff. And I just had this idea. I was like, we're going to do a concert. And so I called Colin Ray, who I had opened for years ago, because Colin Ray, I don't know if you know who he is.
Hey, yes, I was a big Colin Ray fan. I've got a few of
Okay,
his
so yeah, he's
CDs.
got like 16 number one hits. Well, I had opened up for him when I was doing my country music, like long ago, but
Mm-hmm.
I still had been in contact with him. So I called him like, dude, do you want to do the first concert in America? And he's like, I'm in. And so then we were like trying to find another mayor who was willing to put it on, you know, and the state kept putting major pressure on these mayors. And so we had it planned up in Kaysville. They ended up canceling it, but yet they let Lagoon open up the same weekend, I think. And then we had it planned in Tooele, but then the a judge came in and said that we were going to cause irreparable damage,
And
but
that
at
was
the
on
same
private
time
property.
period, and this is why you got to watch the documentary. At the same time period, they were letting this like BMX, motocross, whatever it was, happen in the county, in Tooele County. And so the hypocrisy was amazing. It's like, oh, this is about the money. This is all about the money, because you can go to Walmart, but you can't go to Ma and Pa.
Yeah.
And so you could see how strategic this was, and why I believe without a doubt that this was all planned out to crush small business. Because if you crush small business in America, it's over. Small business makes up of over, well, it did over 50% of the American economy, which holds up the world economy because of small business. And so these communists, they planned, in my opinion, and I don't care if you call me conspiracy, this is all planned. This was all planned out. And if it wasn't planned out by them, Satan was unbelievably or calculated in doing this, because that's really what I'd like to talk about at the end, is the New World Order and why we got to fight against it. But long story short, we ended up putting the concert on because a bold county commissioner, Paul Cousins, stepped up in Iron County, and we ended up having the concert down there, which is Cedar City. And I think five or 6,000 people came to the first concert. Guy Fieri showed up.
He's the food guy, right?
Yeah, when we took stage, and there was so many people that were helping us too. Like, it wasn't me. Like, I was just kind of had these ideas and we'd do it, but there was a whole team of people. With the Utah, I created a group called the Utah Business Revival, and it was all free. All of it, like it was free
Mm-hmm.
to come for their businesses, and it was free to come for the people. So it was like I was able to like sacrifice my time for that short little moment, and to be able to feel that spirit of liberty. And I remember just standing there on stage getting ready to open up again for Colin Ray. And I just remember having chills all over my body, like, this is liberty. A whole bunch of people
Mm-hmm.
coming, listening to music against a tyrannical, woke gospel of we're all in this together.
Yeah.
We don't want to ruffle feathers. And I'm just so thankful for all of the people that supported and came and was able to feel that spirit, because it was amazing. And I think that's just kind of getting us prepared for what's coming in the next few years.
What kind of backlash did you get from people close to you? And including, because I feel like members of our church, our faith, and probably all Christians are getting weaker and weaker and more accepting to a fault. What did you experience during that time from church and maybe those others close to you?
Well, it's just the divide, right? I mean, there's people that believe that by following government and going with the agenda, that's what Jesus would do, right? They think that Jesus would just go along with stuff and that prophets of old would just go along with stuff. But when you read the scriptures, it was the prophets of old and it was that were speaking out against the government. It was Daniel in the lion's den. It was Jeremiah, it was Isaiah, it was Samuel the Lamanite, it was Lehi that left, it was I mean, you name it, right? It was Joseph that got driven out from the government. It's the government that tried to come and take out the Mormons in Utah. It was the government that put an extermination order on us. And so it was Moses, right? So what I'm saying is that there's a pattern. And right now we are in the devil's kingdom. Now, just because I say we're in his kingdom, it doesn't mean that we need to be of his kingdom. The devil fell from heaven. This is in Isaiah when Lucifer and they fell, because they didn't want to follow the commandments of God. And so what the devil has done is he's created a counter kingdom. And so it looks very similar to God's kingdom, because God's kingdom is liberty, right? 2 Corinthians 3:17, where the spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. So that is the kingdom of God. It sits in liberty. It means that you cannot force people. Okay. So a couple things. You can't force people what to do, and you can't be told what to do in God's kingdom. You have to act and you have to make decisions. That's liberty. So freedom and liberty aren't the same thing. You can have your freedom but make bad choices. That's captivity. But if you have your freedom and make good choices, that's liberty. So freedom plus good choices is liberty.
Good point.
And that's heaven. So Satan fell from that liberty. And now he's created a counter kingdom that here on earth, it looks very similar, ran by governments of the world, where the governments are telling churches what to do. And the devil doesn't have commandments, but the devil has demandments. And so I think what's happening on a spiritual level is that what happened to him, which was he was canceled out of heaven for his own choice, which was to ironically go on not choosing. Now he's at a place where he doesn't have a lot of choices left. That's why we're about to enter into a third world war. But if you don't follow his demandments, what do you think happens to you?
Canceled.
You're canceled. You're out. And so that's why so whoever's listening to this, don't be afraid to be canceled. Don't be afraid to stand up for what's right. That's why I think part of what Jesus was trying to say, which was consider the lilies, get out of Babylon. Don't you think God can bless you? If the lilies of the field and the birds of the sky, if God can provide for them, don't you think he can provide for you?
Yeah.
See, but we don't really, as a whole culture, we don't really have faith in that. We're in this very, very fake matrix system that is about to collapse on. It is. It's cannibalizing itself right now.
Is part of this the New World Order that you were mentioning?
So in my opinion, the New World Order is the devil's duplicate of the United Order that God has been trying to build, the city of Enoch. So there's only been one group of people that did it, and that was the city of Enoch. Now, within other groups of people, there were individuals that did it, right? Like Moses, like Joseph, like, people that figured it out on an individual level, but collectively, the only group was the city of Enoch, where they were literally taken up because they figured it out. And so the devil has always tried to counterfeit. He can't create anything. So what he does is he counterfeits. And so this new world order, in my opinion, it's the devil's duplicate. that he has been preparing for thousands of years. In fact, I think he's pulled it off several times. Pharaoh time. I think he pulled it off Tower of Babel. That was the government. He pulled it off probably Noah's time. Does that make sense? Like as
Oh yeah,
God starts to build up his people, you've got to counter people. So
that's the
people
way.
are like,
Yep.
well, you've mentioned Joseph. Well, Joseph Smith, he's he was supposed to be the father of this kind of united order of trying to build it back. That's why God chose him. Now, guess who was born at the same time as Joseph? Right around the same time. Do you know? On
Mm-mm.
the opposite spectrum?
No.
Karl Marx.
Hmm.
Well, Karl Marx is the father of communism, Marxism. And so there's always that counter. There's an opposition in all things. And so for those that aren't of my faith, read the Book of Mormon because the Book of Mormon literally shows the same pattern of what is happening today. Like reading the newspaper. It's like this happened already. That's why we have it. It's a warning to America. If you allow these secret combinations to get above you, you shall be destroyed. Not might, not could be. You shall be. It's a
Yeah.
warning.
I read the comments sometimes of things that you post, and sometimes maybe if it's more of sometimes you have a religious post or comment or a reference, and sometimes it's geared more towards the Latter Day Saint faith, or like references a Book of Mormon verse or something. I don't know. The comments are sometimes humorous, oftentimes very ignorant, and I mean, sometimes just stupid. But how do you deal with all the comments that are the full of hate, and or even sometimes just like anything Mormon, it's of the
Oh
devil,
yeah.
and I'm not
It's
going to
just the
even
kind of the
entertain it.
spirit. Like I'll read it and sometimes you don't know what they're doing. So I'll usually match that energy unless it's like if it's past and they start going on these personal attacks like, that are just nasty, I'll just block them. Right. And some people are like, well, you're not about free speech. No, I have boundaries and you're not going to come up on my page and say these horrific things. You want to debate. I love debates. I love it because you can be respectful. 99.9% of the world does not believe what I just talked about, the Book of Mormon. Wonderful. We can still go to lunch and be buddies if you want.
Hmm. Yeah.
I respect that. I respect a lot of different beliefs and faiths. I believe that all paths, okay, all paths, if you are following your conscience and you're on a path, it's going to lead you to the path, which is Jesus. No matter where you're at in the world. Yeah, if people want to know more, there's more. If people are good where they're at and Jesus is your savior, I believe you're going to make it to heaven in due time. That's what's going to happen. But my message is that it's way more than just being there. It's who we're becoming. That's why we're here trying to stand up for what's right because we are literally in this little kind of incubator test, this little kind of I call it the matrix, but it's like it's a big spiritual simulation. Where do you stand on these issues? That's why I think God hasn't just completely wiped us off the map yet because he's still trying to see who is his and who's going to choose him and who's going to choose what's right. And when people make mistakes and they sin, are they going to repent? Are you going to forgive people? Are you going to stand up for your God given rights? Are you going to take control of your family and know that you are the king and queen of your family? And then whatever it is we choose, I believe that multiplies in heaven. So what is it that you want?
Well, Eric, anything else?
Not really. I'm thankful to be here, man. I really am. It's such a crazy time to live in. I mean, we're going to, in my opinion, my strong opinion, we are going to see it. I was telling one of my friends a couple days ago, I'm like, man, it's awesome to be alive. Like we have everything right now. We are a generation that literally has everything at the tip of our fingertips, right? And we're also going to be the same generation that on the flip side had lost everything
Hmm.
all in one shot. And oh my gosh. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't know how we course correct with the direction that we're heading, with the financial problems, the wars that we're getting ourselves into, the moral decline. I don't know any other way but just a major, major house cleaning. But right now, my message is to just get right with God, get prepared as a family, like get a try to get a couple years worth of food if you can for your family, and then warn your neighbor. That's really it.
Who's going to save the Constitution?
Well, it's in your heart, right? It's truth. So I look at that as long as there's some people fighting for their rights and what's true, that's saving it. And so to answer your question, I don't know. I think that it's anybody that's going to say no. That's why mass non-compliance, not fighting, like, yeah, if you're getting attacked, there's a godly principle in defending yourself, but if so many people were able to just arise and be like, no, we're not doing this,
Mm-hmm.
it's not happening, then they have no power. We're the ones that give them the power by bowing down every single time they do something that's goes against the laws of the universe.
One of my past podcast guests, Bobby Weismiller, works for the federal government, and this was a couple of years ago, and 2 or 3, and we talked about he was not going to get the jab. He was not getting the vaccine, and he was going to lose his job. Now, fortunately, he still has a job. He's still there. Nothing has changed. But he had said, "This is my hill to die on. I will not." He tried to get a religious exemption, denied. But anyway, he still has a job. But everybody wasn't that fortunate. So I appreciate what you've done. And the documentary is excellent. I will have a link to that on your website. Can you just tell us about Freedom Blends?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you guys need really good sups and you're getting supplements, because I do believe that's like a really important thing with what they're feeding us, which is poison in most cases. My company Freedom Blends, it's all products based on the principles of liberty. So I've got products like, First Amendment multis for men and women, Kami colon cleanse, sleep off socialism, a really good hair, skin, and nails. My girls love it. Constitutional collagen. My number one product is Freedom Fuel, which is all of your fruits and veggies organic in a capsule. Just makes it so that your body doesn't crave after carbs and sugar as much. And one of them has an energy that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So go to freedomblends.com and get the bundle pack. That'll last one person 2 months. But yeah, it's my company and it does all right. It's just, it's just an alternative to if you buy supplements, why not buy Patriot supplements?
Yeah. Are they all, is it sourced in the US?
Yeah, like especially my Freedom Fuel. This one is that I actually get it from here in Utah. So
A few weeks ago, I got the First Amendment, what's it called? The multivitamin one. I've been taking that for a few weeks, and then you sent me a sample of the what's the one that's like the balance of nature?
yeah, the Freedom Fuel
Freedom Fuel.
Freedom Fuel with energy.
With energy. You sent me a sample. I was like, I got to get this because I've wanted balance of nature, at least for my wife, but we've talked about it, but it's pretty expensive. Your Freedom Fuel is cheaper than balance of nature. I just got it in the mail the other day. So yesterday was my first day taking it. I took 3. I felt great. In fact, I got to try it out. So last night I try to go to bed at 10 every night, but I could not fall asleep. And I don't know if maybe I need to start to go with 2. So today
What
I took
time did
2
you
of them.
take it at?
Oh, in the morning, like 6,
Oh
6:30.
wow, yeah. I mean,
6:30.
it's potent. It's potent. So you got to find your spot. I can't take it past 2 p.m. So
I was
I'll
about to
take
take
two
it in
to
the
three.
afternoon. I saw your note there, or maybe it was on it. It said, "Don't take it past 3 unless you want to stay up." And I knew not to touch that.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. I really, really like it. And so yeah, if you crave after carbs and sugars a lot, take it. If you
Yeah.
hit a wall and you're on Red Bull and all this crap, try it. It's like a natural Adderall, but without the negative side effects.
Well, I'm one of these guys that like I want to give an honest review, and I will be promoting it if I just want to. I've had it in my system for 2 days now, and I'm going to keep taking it and give it a try. My wife is taking the Freedom Fuel also with energy.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an affiliate code so you can have it on here.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I support you in what you're doing there. And man, I'm really glad in fact, my friend I was talking about with the federal government, he's the one that introduced me to you. Of course, it was only kind of recently. But anyway, I'm glad you're entertaining, but you speak what you believe. And in every case that I've seen so far, you speak the truth, or at least the truth as I know it too, or as I believe it. So
Well,
appreciate you.
if you can be on 85% of the time, nobody's on 100. It'd be kind of scary if somebody was on 100, from church leaders to whoever it is. Like, no, the only person that is 100 is Christ. So, other than that, I try, I fail, I fall short, but I do try.
I appreciate you. God bless you. Anything else you want to leave the folks with?
That's it. God is real.